Hi folks, my name is Enda Flaherty. I work with Rubicon Heritage with Colm there, and we're part of the Red River group. Um, so this afternoon at this point, I'm going to talk about probably some high-level concepts when it comes to mega projects and what they can offer. I'm also trying to tie in a little bit into the idea of weaving narratives and discussing the narratives that our work generates, and what mega projects can contribute and generate mega narratives, I guess. So so just looking at what we're going to talk about, I guess the idea that the current state of play and mega investment, because with mega projects comes mega investment. I'm going to discuss maybe a little bit about historic infrastructure, the opportunities for development and rejuvenation, and one that contributes to place, meaning, and then something from business studies 101, I suppose, really. But strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats is a simple SWOT analysis. Might be familiar to some people. The image there is just of a Tuam railway station in County Galway. You'll see as I go on how that ties into what I'm going to talk about, and what it means, I guess, in terms of the historic landscape and how we engage with it, and what our mega projects can contribute to rejuvenating the historic landscape. So we'll press on, and I have an interesting first image for you here. And if I hit the right key, you should see a little animation there. So the easiest thing to do is to start with the right image and explain that, and then I'll go into the meaning of the second image, I suppose, really. On the right-hand side, you see an animation of the railway network in the Netherlands. The counter on the top left-hand corner is actually the time of day. You can see all the train movements throughout the day. You can see, for me, it resembles a circulatory system, or the lifeblood of a country, really, of the Netherlands. And on the left-hand side, you can see something quite contrasting. These are fictional characters from the television show, The Hardy Books. It's an interesting show. It began as a YouTube series, but that's not really of importance to us. What's important is their background. You can see that they're standing on the disused railway bridge over the real-life town of Swinford. The railway was constructed and opened in 1895 and closed to regular traffic 1963, goods traffic ending in 1975. The railway bridge and this extinct railway infrastructure, this disused infrastructure, is a reoccurring motif throughout the television show. Often their interviews, their mock interviews, are conducted up in these railway bridges and disused infrastructure. And I find it very insightful because it's, whether they were fully aware of it or not, it's very ubiquitous theme throughout much of, let's say, the west coast of Ireland, from Donegal down through Mayo, Galway, Clare, Kerry, and then through the Midlands of Ireland, particularly around the border. This hollowing out, I guess, of the rural landscape through depopulation, population movement from the countryside to the towns, and the towns to the cities, and the changing rural landscape. And I guess what this image says to me is that the rural environment has been kind of hollowed away. And I actually find it a very interesting image, and I find the idea quite insightful. So we'll move on a little bit. An image on the left-hand side there is something you might be familiar with. Our former railway network in 1906 at its greatest extent. The population of the island at the time was about 4.4 million. And to the right-hand side, our current railway network. Our population on the island at the moment is about 7,052,000 odd. I'm just treating the island as a whole because it's easy to work with the historic sources and compare both north and south together. But there's another reason for that too, which you'll see shortly, as there's been new developments in terms of tackling the railway network and the infrastructure in Ireland. And that is this. So at the top of the presentation, I mentioned about mega investment. The All-Ireland Strategic Rail Review was partially released in the recent months. We can see from the map here that there are serious plans for investment across the whole island, and closing up a little bit of that gap there to the south of the border, opening up much of the Western Rail corridor again, which will be to the delight of those boys overlooking Swinford and County Mayo. So, but even more impressive than that, to me, is to complement the planned railway rejuvenation, is this mega project, this mega infrastructure. Now, we've talked about scale. We've talked about SuedLink, a huge project being undertaken in Germany. And we've seen all across Europe massive projects. But to me, the National Cycle Network is a phenomenal scale. It's 3,500 kilometres of active travel routes, greenways, much of them reusing historic infrastructure, revitalising rural landscapes, and kind of reimagining the environment and bringing landscape back to life and making it, I guess, helping people engage with historic infrastructure. And that's really what we're going to talk about over the next few minutes, is this idea of revitalizing and rejuvenating historic infrastructure, what it means to local communities, how we can help them as heritage professionals understand its significance and enhance the enjoyment and engagement with historic landscapes and infrastructure. So I'll move on just a little bit there. So historic infrastructure. Bryn will probably be quite familiar with images such as this. This is work that we've done at Rubicon Heritage, or we're currently engaged with at the moment. It's an example of early stage multi-criteria assessment for a greenway in Ireland. Now, you see there at the bottom paragraph, past sale of former railway land holdings and historical episodes of adverse possession have resulted in the requirement quite often for existing railway lines to need additional routes chosen because the land that was previously available is no longer available. This is an example of a route selection. The green line is the former railway line, and these are the various options that we would need to assess to accommodate the reopening as a greenway. The dots are cultural heritage receptors, really. These are just RMPs. What I wanted to draw attention to here is that quite often when we're undertaking these assessments, you saw also in Bryn's presentation that avoidance is the number one option. But when we're talking about greenways in these specific kinds of situations, there is an opportunity there, not for avoidance, but for engagement. Remembering that we're not designing a roadway, we're designing a greenway, and maybe it might be complementary to a greenway, not to avoid cultural heritage, but to direct traffic to cultural heritage. I think that's an opportunity that we should try and explore a little bit more. I know that we are doing that, but I think it's something that could be brought to the fore. Again, work that we've done with a greenway with TII, Advanced Survey of a Railway Overbridge, ahead of a greenway development. And the questions we might ask ourselves, I guess, is what will be the public's understanding of the infrastructure that they're using? Will it be fully aware of their historic environment and its significance through time? How can that engagement and cultural information enhance the public's experience at individual sites? And can this work feed public understanding? And it's our role in these early phases to kind of complement that capacity and to help, I guess, enhance the experience of the infrastructure and to help it be a living landscape. Now, the reason for this, in my opinion, the devil is in the detail. We have exposed historic rail infrastructure at Stanley Street in Dublin, and it's these details and streetscapes that help enhance the sense of place rather than just space, particularly in urban environments or in small towns. Rejuvenated historic infrastructure helps generate a sense of caring for the living environment, in my opinion. And of course, what we want to generate here is a living environment. We want to preserve the historic infrastructure, but we want people to still be able to live in the environment, for it not to just be a museum piece, and for I guess, town centres and city centres not to be hollowed out and dead zones after 6 o'clock in the evening, as can sometimes be the case. It's something that we're experiencing, I think, in a lot of cities, particularly in the UK and Ireland. More work that Rubicon Heritage have done. At that time, we were Headland Archaeology. This time, not specifically railways, but the Grand Canal, archaeological engineering and industrial heritage assessment. And it's these kind of assessments that help to, I guess, tying into our session and our conference over the next couple of days, weave a narrative. Because it's the narratives that generate the sense of place rather than a sense of space. And what we're trying to generate is a place where things happen, rather than a space that is just built. We want to generate a place where people experience a sense of belonging. And I believe that we have exceptional opportunities with cultural heritage to contribute to that and ensure that we have living spaces rather than just constructed places. Okie doke. So, onto our SWOT analysis. So the strengths. So historic infrastructure comes with an intrinsic narrative that only needs to be unlocked through interpretation and explanation. This historic infrastructure has meaning already. I guess what I would have experienced over the past number of decades in Ireland, what we would know is that some of this historic infrastructure has not been cared for and has fallen out of use, perhaps through depopulation. There hasn't been the market for it, but we now have the opportunity to reintroduce it and give it a new life. And it comes with an intrinsic narrative. Historic infrastructure can define not just the physical landscape, but contribute to the cognitive landscape of the community, which is very important. Weaknesses, I think, of course, it's challenging to expose, stabilize, and rejuvenate historic infrastructure. It's much easier to build something out of reinforced concrete. So we have challenges there, and this probably ties into a little bit of quality versus price. Are we going to choose something with a bit more quality with a little bit more investment over just the functional, price-driven option? Opportunities for community engagement, tourism, national and international, rejuvenation of urban landscapes and creating a living, sustainable environment. And of course, the most eco-friendly building to build is the one that already exists. And threats, time. There's probably a little bit of time is of the essence, because this infrastructure is not indestructible, and we do probably have to at least stabilize some of it. And finally, we're back to our Hardy books again on the disused railway bridge overlooking the town of Swinford. Part of the mega project is rejuvenation and engagement, interpretation, understanding, pride of place, I guess. And I guess we do talk about these mega projects in terms of scale, cost, kilometres. But of course, part of that is our contribution to the cultural landscape and the cognitive landscape. Sinead? Yeah.